you see the pain of farmers. I think they will see that they are being listened to, that people understand their plight, and I hope also that they will feel hope, because the current strategy has not given them hope.
I'm visiting the Save Me Trust Centre in Windlesham to meet Sir Brian and put the farmers' concerns to him. The Gatcombe project, clearly it's very exciting and interesting what you've done. Have you had this work peer reviewed, or is there a study that's going to be in the pipeline so that you can turn around and say, experts have looked at this, here's our evidence?
It's not a question of peer review really, and peer review is actually very suspect, and it's a shame that it is that way, because peer review tends to be very often from the same clique of people who are interested in that subject. You know, it tends to be not impartial. But what you need is confirmation of our results. It's very hard to argue with the results we've got. We would like the government to put in place a large scheme, a pilot scheme, to verify the conclusions of Gatcombe.
So did the Gatcombe estate trial, or it's a 6-year trial, did it actually find any smoking gun? I was looking in the documentary for new evidence, and I couldn't find it based on where we were 4 years ago, shall we say, when we had the same interview.
Well, the bombshell, I think, well, there are a number of bombshells, to be honest. One is that we were able to clear up the herd and get a TB-free situation without doing anything to the badgers. Now, that's not the way we started. The deal was Dick would clean up the herd, we would clean up the badgers by vaccination. But 4 years later, we hadn't been able to do that because the vaccine wasn't available at that time. It was in need for human consumption. So the fact that we confirmed that we have a population of badgers that are infected with TB, no question, they've been infected by the cows. We tested the latrines. We did enhanced testing on everybody, the badgers, the cows, the excretions, etc. The latrines in the case of the badger, directly on the excretions in the case of the cattle. We discovered that most of these cows, in fact all of these cows, who had been selected by the skin test as reactors, if you do the post-mortem all the way through their body, you find the TB in other organs. And we were able to conclude that TB actually finds its way into the body, not primarily through the lungs, but through other organs, and it starts off by ingestion. It's not seen to be infected because the pathogen is so good at hiding. It only gets into the lungs at the last stages. Now this turns everything upside down. If you're taking out a cow only if it has lesions in its lungs, you're leaving most of the infected animals in the herd. And we discovered a cow in Robert's herd which had been through 30 skin tests, clear, but was riddled with TB in every organ when it went to the abattoir. By enhanced testing, you find the pathogen before the cow is exhibiting any symptoms, and you were able to remove the cow, if that's the way you're working, before it can infect its neighbour.
I don't think any farmer on the planet would disagree that the testing regime is inadequate as it stands, but how do we then turn this around? I mean, it's going to cost an awful lot of money, and who's going to pay for it? The price of food would have to go up, and how do we square
It does cost money, but at the moment an enormous amount of money is being wasted killing badgers. An enormous amount of money is being wasted doing skin tests which are not effective.
You mentioned within the programme that 1/3 of badgers at Gatcombe actually carry bovine TB.
That's right. Judging on the latrines, yes.
Yes, yeah. So how can we be certain that this is not playing a significant role in the transmission of TB between cattle and the circularity?
We looked at the theory and we looked at where the pathogen actually was, and there's an incredibly small amount of pathogen in the excretions of badgers, and they're only in latrines. They're very hard to access by cattle, so it's extremely hard for cattle to get infected by the badgers.
So many farmers blame badgernators either urinating or defecating on grassland. I noticed that there's an omission or an absence of that within the filming. Did you address that at Gatcombe at all?
Absolutely, yeah. We had cameras everywhere and we knew exactly where the badgers were. and they never defecated or urinated near where the cattle were. It's not a surprise if you know badgers as we know them, because badgers are not random defecators. Badgers only do their excretions in one particular spot, the latrine, and any farmer who knows his salt knows that, and he'll fence it off. That's what Robert did, and the badgers would never go around excreting randomly. It just doesn't happen. Cows do, of course. They leave cowpats everywhere, so it's quite understandable that a badger can be eating mollusks, invertebrates which are attracted by the cowpats, and it's very easy for the badgers to get infected by the cows, and of course they do. It's no surprise.
At the time of filming, the farm was down with TB.
Yeah, there's a very good reason for that.
But was that not mentioned in the series, or why was that not mentioned in terms of?
We had the TB-free certificate, and we knew that the herd was still harbouring TB, but we weren't allowed to test because it was TB-free, which is a strange anomaly in the present system. We actually managed to get Dick off the hook. They were going to arrest Dick for testing once the herd was free. That's why the herd broke down again. And Robert was actually waiting for it to break down so that he could get back into his enhanced testing, so he could clear up the herd properly.
So moving on a little bit here. So I was sat at the Royal Welsh Show a few weeks ago, and Alla Jones, NFU Cymru president, and Tom Bradshaw, both were really concerned about the possibility of Labour stopping culling now without a viable alternative.
If you regard culling badgers as a tool, as a weapon against TB, and you find that that tool is not effective, why would you consider using the tool anymore? So if you're stopping badger culling, you're not taking away anything which is helping the farmers. Plus, what we are bringing in is the knowledge of how the thing is actually transmitted, the pathogen, and new techniques to cut off the routes of transmission within the herd. And this is something which is a tool which will work and has worked at Gatcombe.
So what's your view? Tom Bradshaw at the time said that he pointed out that the Birch review has revealed a 56% reduction in new TB herd incidents. So this is peer-reviewed science.
Yeah, and
do you have a view on that? Do you think that that's incorrect? Or
during that period, they changed. They introduced culling, yes, but they also introduced more enhanced testing in various places. They changed biosecurity. So you're changing a number of variables. So you cannot come to any conclusion, no matter how hard you work on the statistics. Well, they excluded any cattle as infected if they didn't have lesions in the lungs. Now, from what I've just told you, that's a fatal mistake, because most of those animals which were not included in the analysis had been detected, had been discovered by the skin test to be suspect, and you can be sure that they had. You can be pretty sure they had TB in other organs in their body. Those are excluded from the statistics. And what happens is, at the end, the proportion of those animals is going to be bigger than it was at the start, because you're taking out animals earlier, because you're detecting the pathogen earlier by the enhanced testing. So the results are completely skewed, and this claim of 56% is complete nonsense, and I'm shocked that the peer review system let it through.
can we eradicate bovine TB without addressing the reservoir of disease in wildlife per se?
I don't believe that the reservoir of the disease in wildlife has any bearing on farming, because the reservoir is a dead end. It cannot feed back into the farming process. There's the fact that, for instance, even on Robert's farm, where he had cows contracting the disease, they were never the ones that were in the fields next to the badger sets. The only cows that ever came down with TB were the ones kept in the sheds all year round. And it's like cold, it's there. No badger can get in there, no way. And we would know if they did.
So I've got some statistics on Wales, actually, which came from earlier in the year. So Wales and England are compare and contrast. So in England, we recorded its lowest number of TB herd incidents in 20 years in 2023. So that was a 17% year-on-year fall. with 2,460 new herd incidents in English cattle herds. But if we compare and contrast that in Wales, there were big increases found in 2 areas of Wales, but offset by falls in others. But nevertheless, there's a stasis, there's a view that in Wales things aren't getting better, and in England they are getting better.
I know the figures you're quoting, and you look at, there are less incidences of new breakdowns in herds, but there are also less herds at the end than there were at the beginning. And there's various weighting factors which are not taken into account. I'm not the person to talk to, Dick is the person to talk to on this, but if you look at all those statistics, they're all questionable. And to me, there are people somehow, for some reason, in DEFRA sitting there trying to find statistical analysis which will justify the position that they've taken. But I've talked to farmers down in Wales, and in Wales, yes, we have a lot of farmers, and they are not happy with the situation because in their own particular herds, they're seeing things worse than they were before. The same in the West Country, which is the worst TB hotspot in Britain. I've had a farmer look me in the eyes and say, look, they told me if I kill badgers, it would solve my problem. My problem is worse now than it's ever been. There are no badgers left to kill. What do I do? That's what I'm getting. So if Keir Starmer gets to see what we've seen, he'll realise that there is no point in leaving those existing licences in place and killing 30,000 more badgers by 2026 for no result.
So moving on to vaccination, I think last time we met you told us that badger vaccination was futile in your view. There's been some positive results this week from Rosie Woodruff, or claims in a study in Cornwall. Do you still think that badger vaccination is futile, or do you think that this is something worth doing? Okay.
Killing them or vaccinating them has the same zero effect. Farmers are crying in this documentary. Things are not good. It has not worked out well. How is the government turning a blind eye to that?
What's your view on cattle vaccination?
And it's almost impossible to distinguish a vaccinated cow from an infected cow, which is why it's not valued on the open international market. There is a thing called a DEVA test, which has been under development for ages with APHA. It could work. It doesn't work yet. And I think by the time all that stuff is sorted out, including the politics of it, it will be too late. I think it won't be sorted out by 2038. So I would say, even though it would be a nice dream, it's not going to happen. What we need to do is stop the pathogen getting into the cows in the first place, take away the environmental load on the cattle and allow them to be healthy without vaccinating them.
Okay. What impact do you think that badger culling has on ground nesting birds, on bees, on hedgehogs? There was hedgehogs at the start of the documentary. A lot of farmers are telling us anecdotally that they're seeing hedgehog numbers rebound post-culling.
And they really care? Sorry, I have to laugh.
I think they do. I think they do.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you get rolling of eyes from us because it's been introduced as a concept. All the badgers are killing off our hedgehogs. It's a red herring, and it's basically not true. Badgers and hedgehogs have coexisted in Britain since long before humans were here.
What impact do you think the documentary will have on mental health among farmers that view it?
I think we have given hope. We give hope in the documentary because there are ways of solving this problem. And we've already helped many farmers. And you see a little bit of that in the documentary. You don't see much, but you see some. So I'm hoping it will have a massively shocking effect on the general public. On a par, people have told us it does shock them, on a par with the post office scandal or whatever. It's a massive injustice, a massive deviation from the path that should have been followed.
And I suppose final question, I can't go without asking you about Jeremy Clarkson. Obviously loved by farmers, or most farmers. He's a Marmite character, no doubt. He's got very different views to you on badgers and what he feels we should do with badgers. And I can quote to you what he said. He said, "These are not nice animals. Do not be fooled by Brian May. This is what badgers do. This is how much heartache they're causing to people who've worked for generations to build up a farm that's been wiped out by badgers.
I'm smiling because I met him recently.
Okay.
We exchanged, we had a short conversation. And I'm totally aware that he's using me as something to, what's the word, to attack. I haven't attacked him back. I've resisted the temptation because I like the guy really. But I like his approach to authority and his sort of irreverence. I like his open-mindedness. In my opinion, he's been very poorly advised. He's new to this. We've been in this for 12 years, or 14 years, I suppose. He's new. All he can do is believe the people that gives him advice. He's got a vet standing next to him who's saying, oh yes, TB is transmitted by badgers sniffing their breath and cows sniffing the breath of the badger. I mean, it's laughable, though nobody believes it. I've never met a vet who thinks that anymore. We've discovered for sure that that the disease is not spread through the air, through breath. So I think he's been very badly advised, and if he sees this documentary, which I hope he will, I think he might be open to a different interpretation. It's sad for me because 4 million people have seen his program and have seen him saying that, and unfortunately his advice has been very poor. I think we can help him. I think we can give him strategies which will help him keep his farm healthy, and I'm actually very confident that once I get the chance to spend time with Jeremy, he will feel differently.